I was so in my depths of pain, I couldn't open the boxes. So they sat in my basement for about a month, and then one day I had the courage to open them. And I was down there by myself going through trophies, accolades, designations, all the stuff that, were in my offices that made me either seem important or seem credible or whatever. And I had the epiphany like, none of this matters. Like, I can't take it with me. There's no U-Hauls following hearses. And this would, if I died today, like this would just be stuff collecting dust on a shelf or stuff my wife would have to deal with. And just didn't matter. But what did matter was my relationship with God, my
Mhm.
relationship with myself, my relationship with my family and close loved ones.
You are listening to the Faith Breathed Hope podcast, episode number 219. Today I speak with husband, father, bridge builder, a leader forged through fire and guided by faith, founder of Kairos coaching and EOS implementer, Josh Kosnick, on learning to rebuild the breaking of a CEO. Welcome to the Faith Breathed Hope podcast, where we gain inspiration and motivation from others who share their touching stories of renewing hope and discovering purpose in any circumstance. I'm your host, Christina Reisinger, and today we will be encouraged by another tremendously inspirational topic that will embolden you to release fear, begin taking small steps forward, and move into your God-given purpose to live and serve in this life. Join me for today's story. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Faith Breathed Hope Show. I am your host, Christina Reisinger, and today I am here with Josh Kosnick. Hey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad to have you here. We are going to talk about some rebuilding information, like from coming down to this place where you were broken in your role as a CEO and how we can rebuild that. But before we start talking about what God has for us here, what can you share with the audience about yourself that maybe not everybody in your circle knows?
I actually love this question. I use it in a lot of my business leadership team meetings to get them to know each other better. So I'm going to go with one. I'm going to go way back. Eighth grade promotion, I sang a solo, Boys to Men. It's so hard to say goodbye.
Oh, and how did that go?
It went well. I used to be able to sing well. I just, sports and other things got in the way, and now it's reserved for embarrassing my kids.
Oh, that's fun. I bet they love that.
Yeah.
Can you tell the audience a little bit about who you are? And we can talk about how you got to where you are now, but I'd love to hear a little bit about your story.
Yeah. So as I stand today, I'm a father of four, married 17 and a half years, child of God, and I run two different businesses. One is an event space where we have a farm that basically anyone that comes out there and wants to vision something for themselves, their companies, their families, we love to host them. And the majority of the time, I'm doing business coaching for entrepreneurs and high achievers. And we run that a lot of times out at the farm, but I do a lot of virtual work and sometimes I travel to clients as well. But that's my day to day beyond chasing my four young kids around today. And I'm sure we'll get into the backstory and all that stuff as well.
Right. How old are your kids?
14, 12, 10, and 8.
Yes, yes, because we talked about I have a 14 and a 12 and a 10, actually.
Yeah.
So, um, all right, that's what a lot of people are doing right now is trying to find this space. I think that a lot of times people call it a work-life balance where you have all the things at home with the kids and you're trying to do the best that you can for your kids. And then also trying to make a living and do what makes your heart sing, so to speak. Which came first, the business coaching or the you and I talked about this a little bit, but then you have the farm you said where you have events there. Are they synonymous
Those
or
came at the same exact
okay.
time. Yeah, so that came after my brokenness. And
Okay.
I love how you position the work-life balance because I'm on a mission to reframe it to a
Okay.
work-life integration or harmony. It's
Uh-huh.
more of a proper framing because balance indicates 50-50. And
Yes.
there's no magical day we wake up and anything is 50-50. There's going to
No.
be days that's 99-1. There's going to be days where it's 40-60. It's just a fallacy. And so for us that are even going into that frame of mind of thinking of balance, it starts us from the wrong spot. So it's like, how do we maximize our time in work and how do we maximize our time with all the other stuff we have going on, be it kids, our own health,
Mhm.
parents, whatever life is demanding of us right now.
And before you like talk to the audience about how to achieve that, can you sit a moment in this idea of if we approach the day as with mindset of 50-50, what does that really do for our headspace and how the day goes and how we deal with the things that come up? Because I know that if you have certain expectations and then they don't pop up, then it gets you off track. And, different people handle it differently, obviously. But can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, I feel like it sets us up for failure from the get-go. Because if
Mhm.
we just had a normal like day right now, our kids are in school, we have work, and then our kids may have after school activities or whatever that may come. For instance, 3 days a week, 3 evenings a week, I don't pick my girls up till 9 p.m. because they're at dance, they're in competitive dance, and so I work, from say 8 to 5-ish and
Mhm.
work out and then I get home and they're not there, right? So I
Mhm.
may have an hour with them before school and maybe 15 minutes before bed on those 3 nights. So even on the like right from the jump, those days aren't going to be 50-50. So it's how do we
Mhm.
maximize our little moments with them? And then obviously the weekends can be a bigger moment with them. But I think when you have the intention of going into how do I maximize each interaction?
Mhm.
So for instance, before I got on this call with you, I was like, I just want to be the best hour of Christina's day. And that's my frame. And if I can and I'm going to try my hardest to do that. It may not work. You may have a wonderful hour with someone else or with your kids. But my goal is to be the best hour of Christina's day. And that's really the frame that I set for everything. Every interaction I have, whether I'm recording my own podcast or I'm coaching a client or with a group of people, hey, be the best hour of their day. And
Mhm.
so I set that frame with my spouse, I set that frame with my kids, I set that frame with everything I do. And I think that if I can have that ripple effect and set that intention and say that intention out loud to people enough, if we could all take that intention, we'd have a much better world to live in.
I love it. So you talk about how you have 3 days a week where you are picking up your daughters at 9 or after 9. And I think we must have talked about this because I'm in the same boat with my daughter. She's also a competitive dancer. And so we're at the studio late hours. We look at social media a lot and we look at other people's lives, or at least the window that they open up to us on social. And we say, hey, you know what? My life is supposed to look like that. We're supposed to be sitting down at the dinner table 5 nights a week or 7 nights a week. And I'm supposed to be living on a farm and gathering the vegetables and canning the jams and all the things. And that look like they're peaceful and they're harmonious. And so I think a lot of times people tend to get into this frame of mind where maybe they feel like they're not normal because this normal thing is to have this harmony and it's not 3 nights a week away from the dinner table, picking your kids up at 9 o'clock. And I say that from a personal perspective as well. Is there anything that you can talk about to that when somebody starts getting involved in or caught up in that normal area of expectation, maybe?
Yeah, well, it happens in all phases. It's not just us families. Like I'm in the coaching and high performance speaker world, so I speak all over the country as well. And we can get caught up in performance anxiety because we're comparing ourselves to someone else. And we often hear that quote, "The comparison is the thief of joy." And to some extent, that's true. But for competitive people, comparison can actually drive us to be better as well. And so I think two things can be true there. But what I want to share about social media is the vast majority of people are showing their highlight reel, not
Mhm.
what's real. And so they're sharing all the moments they want you to see, not the messiness that they don't want you to see. And so
Yes.
we got to just be really careful about that. I think I heard the stat. I don't think I heard it. I know I heard it. I just may get it a little bit off. That on average, we have around 500 to 1,000 connections on social media. And therefore, about five of them every day are on vacation. And we
Mm.
notice this and we're like, why aren't we on vacation? Why haven't we, taken a
Yes.
family vacation? Or why don't we have the money to go on vacation every day like it seems these people are? Everyone's on vacation. It's not true. It's just what we're being fed through our algorithm because we have enough connections where just by chance, people happen to be doing some fun stuff that we're not currently doing. But then we get to do some fun stuff another day or another week that they don't get to do. And so we just
Mhm.
put these false perceptions in our head and we're comparing our messy life to the highlight reel that's put out online.
Right. And you mentioned that you can learn from the perceptions of other people so that you can use that if you're high functioning to increase your own motivation, maybe. And correct me if I'm kind of
Yeah.
going in the wrong direction, but increase your own motivation and your own expectations so that you can do better things in your own home or your own business. Um, but at the same time, you have to be cautious about that comparison as well because it could be a detriment. Does this have anything to do with the being broken down, the idea of comparison and that you talked about?
Yeah, you got to be really careful with it. That's why I say there's two things there, right? That it can be the thief of joy, and it also can be fuel for those that are motivated. And we got to be really discerning on what we're letting drive us. Are we letting guilt and shame drive us, or are we letting love and hope drive us? Right. So typically, when we see something that bothers us, it's something that we need to look in the mirror and determine what is it about that that's bothering me, that is showing something negative in my life, right? And if we can ask ourselves that question and get to the root cause, then we can have some better answers for ourselves. And it's one of those things where if you're in a broken state, it's really going to hit you a lot harder. And I would
Mm,
actually, if you're in a broken state, probably stay off of social media, just in
okay.
general, until you're ready to resurface when you've gotten to a place of more understanding or acceptance or whatever it may be. Because again, you're just looking at the highlight reel, everyone projecting this perfect life, and no
Mhm.
one's living a perfect life. They're just showing or projecting what they want you to see. And that's
Right.
kind of the ugliness of social media is it's a fake perception of what someone wants you to think is their real world.
Mm. I suppose you could go down into it and say, well, that's what they really want to be in their real world. So that's what they're posting out there. So, um, can you talk about your own experience with being broken? You talked about being a CEO and how all of the things came to I guess a stop, and then you had to
Yeah.
reevaluate and rebuild. Can you tell us that?
Yeah, and it's actually leads into the story of where I went to where I really determined the work-life integration piece because I'm a highly motivated individual. I started as an entrepreneur when I was 24 years old and had this fast rise by 35. I'm the CEO of a company that has 250 employees and manage $4 billion in assets. And from the outside looking in, all people saw was this meteoric rise. And anyone that's been in entrepreneurship knows it's more like a stock market chart and there's these ups and downs as you go along, but that's not what everyone saw. They just saw me continuing to escalate. And uh, and I say that because I was put on this pedestal, and uh it was earned, but at the same time probably my character hadn't caught up to all the things that I was being touted as well. Like I wasn't living my best life as a health connoisseur. Like I wasn't in my best body. I wasn't the best husband. I wasn't the best father because I was constantly pursuing goals and achievement under the guise of providing and under the guise of my own ego and a lot of different things. So what happened in 2021 is I had an individual that was a cancer on my leadership team sue me. And the long story short of it is the company that was overarching, which was a Fortune 100 company, decided to terminate me to get me out, or to get themselves out of the lawsuit. And so they knew I didn't do anything wrong. At the same point, they wanted to remove themselves from any bad press that could come from the lawsuit. So I turned from an asset to the company to a liability just simply by that lawsuit. And it took me into the pits of my despair because that was everything that I had worked for. All the
Mm.
blood, all the sweat, all the tears that I had poured into building that career, building that business, developing those people underneath me, all gone in an instant. But what wasn't gone was my family. And thank God I didn't screw that up because I wouldn't be sitting before you today. Like if it wasn't for my faith in God and my family, I'm not here. That's how dark my pit was. And it was a lot of lonely nights. And one of the blessings that came from it, now being 4 years removed, is I was forced to pause. So anytime lawyers get involved, it takes longer than it should. Anyone that's been in lawsuits or different things. But so I was in two legal battles. One was the exit from the company, and one was the lawsuit that was civil suit that was filed against me. And the exit with the company was took 6 months. And so I went through all the stages of grief, just like losing a loved one. And it was fascinating because now I've seen other entrepreneurs go through this. In fact, I witnessed my dad go through it after selling the business. He went through a deep depression because you go from having this deep purpose in your life and responsible for all these things, and all of a sudden your identity stripped away. So whether it's a happy exit or a sad exit like mine was, it's very similar to losing a loved one as far as going through the stages of grief. And so you work all the way to acceptance. And that 6 months that I was in that negotiation forced me to pause for the first time in my life. And that's when we get to hear God's voice and we get to actually understand some things in the silence, in the pause, which for high achievers, we just don't give ourselves that time because there's always something to do, always fire to put out, always another goal to achieve. And so we don't ever pause. And this forced me to pause and reevaluate my priorities in life. It forced me to reevaluate what I truly wanted out of life. It forced me to um, reevaluate if I was going to stay in that industry because I was getting recruited by every financial firm in the country. And it would have been totally natural for me to accept some of those big offers, but God was pulling on me to do something different. And
Mm.
so once I got to acceptance, then I was able to start envisioning the future, which has led us here today.
So you called a forced pause. So with God, I think, unfortunately or fortunately, I guess we think it's unfortunate because it is hard when we come to a place where we are forced to pause, whether it would be in our health or something with our job or our business or with our family. Um, but often we see that the Lord leads us to something new, something different, something better, even. There are a lot of stories of redemption in this way. What would you have, or how could you have not had a forced pause? Is there any way, like, do you ever think about, well, obviously it's brought you to something that you would probably consider a better place. But at the same time, do you ever think about that? Well, if I had not been forced to pause, if I had been giving myself pause, how would that look and what would have been the outcome?
Yeah, it's a great question because I even did some of this. So that was the year. So we were still in COVID, but not, we were kind of through the thick of it. 2020, I took a pause. I took a weekend. I remember this instant. I'm just stressed out as all can be. 250 people looking to me to guide them, and I have to be the the lighthouse, like the one that's not stressed out. So I had to pretend all that, like I was literally playing psychologist from do my workday, my Zoom meetings, and playing part-time psychologist from 5 to 8, 5 to 9 p.m. for all the people that were stuck at home and trying to figure out the new world. And because we were a 99% client-facing business, like across the desk, at the kitchen
Mm.
table, and then we moved that all to Zoom. So I had a lot of people that were just mentally not doing well. And so I took the brunt of that. But I remember it was right before my birthday weekend, the summer of 2020. I was smoking a cigar on my patio, and my wife came out and she goes, "What do you need?" And I had to think about it for a while because no one had asked me that question. I hadn't even thought of that question. I was just going through the motions and trying to do my best. I thought about it for a minute, and I said something that kind of made her mad at first. I said, I need a weekend away. And she had for the reason it made her mad because it didn't involve her or the kids.
Hmm.
And the
I
reason I
can
needed a
relate to
weekend
that.
and the reason I needed a weekend away, so I explained it, and then she wasn't as mad anymore. I was like, I need to not be needed.
Yeah.
I need to not be needed. And so I went up to my parents' lake house with my two brothers and a couple close friends and literally put the cell phone away.
Hmm.
Cell phone doesn't work that well up there anyhow, but we just hung out on the lake, hung out in the woods, literally just recharged, and I came back a different human. And so it was one of the first times that I'd ever done that. And it was a great time to just break away. But it was also that question that she asked, like I didn't know what I needed until she asked the question because I wasn't even thinking about it. I was just worried about everyone else. So I think
Hmm.
there's times where we have to check in with our own body and our mind and our soul to like really tap into, okay, what do I need? Do I need a
Hmm.
vacation to recharge and rejuvenate so I can come back and make this next sprint? In some of my business coaching, I teach clarity breaks. And clarity breaks you can do daily. I would recommend weekly at the very least, where you take an hour and you can't be in your home and you can't be at your office. And you just go to a happy spot, whether that's a coffee shop for you, whether it's a park bench, whatever it may be, and just you and a notepad. Work through any
Yeah.
recurring thoughts, work through any recurring emotions, and work through some visioning for yourself, your family, your life, your business, and just spend that hour with yourself to check in and make sure that you're actually good because
Mhm.
your people, your family, your business, they need you to be good to continue to lead and serve your role, whatever it may be. So that's one of the things I've taught moving forward. But it's interesting, the question, I don't know if I would have done anything different where I was forcing myself to pause. I think God just had a massive different plan for my life that forced me to go down that pit of despair.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of times in our lives that things happen. And I believe, people will say, God wanted this to happen. He allowed it to happen, all those kind of things. There's also the idea that it happens and now God's going to make the best out of it. But I believe that there are times where maybe we're not listening so well. And maybe we're sitting there and God's trying to gently, whisper in our ear, so to speak. And we're just either not hearing it. Maybe we're too busy, like you indicated, you checking off all the boxes, doing all the things, humming and hoeing, and he has to do something a little bit more drastic to catch our attention and say, hey, you know what? I'm trying to tell you this is not it. There's something else even better
Yeah.
here. um I want to know, and maybe you thought about this and maybe you haven't. Had somebody else asked you the question rather than your wife, would that have had any different outcome, or would you have taken it differently?
I think I would have. I think so. Like, let's say one of my employees asked me,
Mm,
um, I probably would have just said, I'm fine.
okay. Yeah.
I probably would have just said, I'm fine. I would have brushed off the question. I think so my wife, being married as long as we have, um, she's learned over the years, like, she can tell it's written on my face when something's bothering me or something's wrong, but she also knows not to ask me
Mhm.
because I'm an internal processor. And when I'm ready to talk about it, I'll talk about it. And it's more of but I think that day it was written so much on my face, like the and my body language. And I'm sure it wasn't just that day. I'm sure it had been building up where she finally just said, "Hey, what do you need?"
Yeah. Yeah. Could have been a prompting of the Holy Spirit through her as well to try to urge you to start going in a different direction.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. I mean, God sends us messengers all the time where we might be, and I've had these experiences where, you're thinking about something and all of a sudden someone shows up and gives you that idea and you're like, what the heck? I've been thinking about this. I literally haven't told anyone, and you show up and tell me exactly what I've been thinking about.
Right, for sure. My kids and I had a little bit of a walk today, and we were talking about something kind of similar. I said, well, there are a lot of times I think that God wants to get our attention. So things will pop up over and over, so to speak. We were talking about something very simple. So self care and hydration, actually. We were talking about water. And I said, water is very simple, but it is something a lot of people do not do is hydrate enough. And so when we don't hydrate, of course, it shows in our body and the things that we feel and in the way that we actually function. And so I'm trying to teach this lesson, and because my daughter says that she's not feeling well, and so we'll go drink some water, and she's kind of irritated with me because she's like, why? Why do I need to drink
Yeah.
water? That's not going to do anything, kind of whatever. And I said, well, lately, I've been reading several books, and it's funny. It's like each of the books that I started to read, or even was listening to on audio, they talked about hydration. So, anyways, that was a just a little segue. So, what happened after you went on this retreat? Was that, or this lake house recharge? Was that when God gave you the idea for coaching, or did that come later?
No, that was a year before everything went down. So that was a
Oh,
recharge that got me back into the business. But what happened after everything went down, and how I got the idea about the retreat and the coaching, is I got through those 5 stages of grief where I was able to start thinking again. And something really weird was happening during that time as well. Like, I've read over 1,000 personal development, leadership, Christian leadership books in my adulthood. I couldn't read. I was so like, I had nothing to do. I was out of business. I'm negotiating this exit, or I should say the attorneys are. I immediately decided that I was going to spend the summer with the kids, because when else would I be able to do that? But as soon
mhm.
as I got them back into school, I'm going kind of batty, because I'm a driven person that's fueled by purpose, and I had none. And so I thought I'd read, but I couldn't read past a page. Like, my brain was just too far gone. And my wife actually found a book called The Next Right Thing, or Next Right Step, or Your Next Right Move. I got to remember the title of it, but it's along those lines. And I was actually able to read it because it was focusing me on the next step, just the next step, not 1,000 steps down the road. And it was a Christian author, and it was a really good segue that got me reading again. So I moved to that acceptance stage, and I started thinking about, because I was at the same time taking meetings from these financial companies, and something weird was happening where I just had this pit in my stomach every time I left a meeting. So it was a lot of prayer and reflection with God, going, well, what is this? And he was basically telling me that I accomplished everything I set out to in that industry, and it's time to blaze a different trail. Okay, what's that? Just kind of left it like open ended. So I created this T chart. For most people that are familiar with T charts, it's usually assets, liabilities, assets on one side, liabilities on another, or usually some form of numbers. My T chart was very different. The left side said, what did I love about my previous world, my previous job, role, whatever you want to title it? And then on the right side, what did I dislike? And then I
Mhm.
made that list, and I asked a very important question at the bottom of it. What if I could design a world that I only did the stuff that I love to do and I'm great at doing, and I eliminated, or at least mitigated, everything on the right side? And so that's what started leading me towards coaching and speaking, because it was all about empowering people, helping people become better versions of themselves, helping them see visions for themselves that they hadn't previously seen, mentoring, teaching them the tools that I had learned over the last 20 years, all that different stuff. So I was like, all right, I can coach, I can speak. That's something I've been doing for a long time. And then my wife looks at me and goes, yeah, I don't want you traveling all the time. We got 4 young kids to raise. And so it led me to the next iteration, where I had a Field of Dreams moment, I call it, for anyone that saw that 1980s
Yeah,
movie. Um, and it was like, if you build it, they'll come.
it
And
will
that's where the
come. Yeah.
retreat came into to the space. So like, okay, so remember, this is 2021. We're just coming out of the COVID bubble, if you will. I got to build a space, or buy a space, that people can get away from their Zoom screens, get back out into nature, get out of those fluorescent lights and tap back into themselves so they can return to their homes and their businesses as better human beings. And that was the idea. But then I had to go find the place. And so it's fascinating how God works. And I told this story in my book as well on how it all came together because there's just too many coincidences for it to become to be a coincidence.
Mhm.
But I ended up closing my deal with my company on December 29th, 2021, and I ended up closing on the property December 30th, 2021. And then we've been
Wow.
off and running since.
So when you just are basically in obedience to what you feel like God has talked to you about. And so you just went out, and was it difficult once you got that nudging from the Lord? Was it difficult to say, okay, I guess probably not for you since you had already run a huge company. So it's probably pretty easy to throw it all together. Or did you have to still work through a lot of struggles and
Yeah.
problems?
Yeah, simple and easy are two different terms. So I am obedient, but more importantly, I think I'm an action taker. And I don't think that
Mhm.
everyone has that action-oriented slant to their life. But being in the financial world, one of the things that stood out over the 20 years that I was in that world, um, we studied the regrets of the dying because we dealt in life insurance, we dealt in financial planning and helping people retire or save for their kids' education, all that different stuff. So we always want to know the regrets of the dying so that we could help people prepare way before that
Mhm.
eventual D-Day. And all the top five regrets, although they switched every year, they had the same kind of nuance, which was they regretted things they didn't do more than things they did do. So the actions they didn't take, or wish they would have acted on this dream, or wish they would have done this instead of the things they did. It had that common slant. And so for me, taking action has always been something that had a proclivity towards anyhow, where once I have that calling from God, or once I have that vision or idea, I'm gonna move towards that and not be scared of failure because I know I'll learn a lot of things along the way.
The book, tell everybody the name of the book again. I don't know
The
if the
Kairos
audience
code.
the
Yeah,
Kairos.
I have it here.
Okay. And
Kairos
you
code.
decided to write this because of all of what had happened with you. So, and when did it come out? Is it recent?
Just 2 months ago, yeah.
2 months ago.
And
Okay. Um, can you tell us a little bit? Is it just your story? Is it telling a little bit of the coaching process? Can you tell us a
all
little
the
bit about?
above, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I tell the whole story in much more detail than I just gave Christina. But what I really found from this whole last few years and getting to that pit of despair, the lessons that I learned through it weren't meant just for me. They were meant for the world. And so I'm teaching through that lens of giving back to the world, and hopefully people won't make some of the mistakes or learn some of the lessons so they don't have to go through the pain that I went through. But more importantly, as we started this conversation with the work-life integration, what I found was, well, I'll tell this brief story. So I wasn't allowed back in my offices after I was terminated, and I owned the leases on it, which was, kind of ironic. So they boxed up all my stuff and sent a moving truck to my house and gave me all the boxes. And I was so in my depths of pain, I couldn't open the boxes. So they sat in my basement for about a month. And then one day I had the courage to open them. And I was down there by myself going through trophies, accolades, designations, all the stuff that, were in my offices that made me either seem important or seem credible or whatever. And I had the epiphany like, none of this matters. Like, I can't take it with me. There's no U-Hauls following hearses. And this would, if I died today, like this would just be stuff collecting dust on a shelf or stuff my wife would have to deal with. And just didn't matter. But what did matter was my relationship with God, my
Mhm.
relationship with myself, my relationship with my family and close loved ones. And I realized in that time that I screwed some things up, that I wasn't prioritizing them, that I wasn't prioritizing my health, that I wasn't prioritizing God. And so I created the Five Bridges framework, which turns out to be the name of the farm and retreat center is Five Bridges Farm. And so what I found was like, if I don't prioritize and place God first, nothing else matters. So the spiritual bridge is bridge number one. And I know that many people don't believe what I believe, but what I do know is that everyone's been to a wake or funeral, and we know the body is present and the spirit is gone. So we got to know that we're spiritual beings at the very least, and then people can determine their path from there. So I still believe spiritual bridge is number one, even if you don't believe what Christina and I believe. And then from there, I noticed, okay, if I'm not my best self, I can't be my best for others. So bridge number two, I call internal, but it's your mental, your emotional, and your physical well-being. I have to be mentally strong, emotionally strong, and physically strong to be my best self for others. Very analogous to when we hop on an airplane and the flight attendants tell us to put our oxygen mask on first before assisting others, because we're no use to others if we're passed out or dead. It's very analogous to how we have to live our lives. We have to be physically and mentally and emotionally strong so that we can, in my words, be the best hour of someone's day. And once we do that, then we get to relationships. These are the fruit of life. Like, so I have to prioritize my relationship with God, myself, my wife, my kids, and then everyone else. And too often I was prioritizing, going back to those COVID nights, of taking care of my employees or making sure they were okay. Although that's noble, my family was getting the short end of the stick.
Mm.
And so I had to reprioritize things in that regard. Now, the bridge everyone skips to is the fourth bridge. And it's not entirely our fault, but I call it the environment bridge, but it's really your professional, your financial, and throwing creative in that bridge as well. But the reason everyone skips to it is A, we need money to operate in this earthly world. But B, from childhood, we're kind of conditioned with what do you want to be when you grow up? And then in high school, they go, what do you want to go to college for? And then in college, they go, what are you going to do with that degree? And it's all positioned around the what. And I think the more proper question is who? Who do you want to be when you grow up? And what values do you want to espouse? And the who is far more important than the what. And so I'm not saying that I don't want people to win big in business and life. Like, I think God gave us very specific and unique gifts, each and every one of us. And I want you to live into those as fully as possible, just as I do. I just don't want people to screw up the order of the bridges. I want them to know there's an order and priority to life and that we got to focus on that. Because I looked around as I'm opening these boxes. I'm like, thank God I didn't screw up and lose my family, because then I would have truly had nothing. And so if we do those first four bridges right, we get to our fifth bridge, which is legacy. And the two things that people get wrong about legacy is, one, they think it's way down the road. 30 years from now when I die, that's when I'll leave my legacy. What they fail to realize is you're leaving your legacy every single day. In every interaction you have with someone, in every action you take or action you don't take, you're leaving part of your legacy, part of you behind on this world. And then the second thing they get wrong is they think it's about things, and it's just not. It's not what you leave behind, it's what you leave in others, pieces of you. And that's how we
Absolutely.
can really shape our legacy going forward. So that's kind of the framework I lay out in the book and go into far more depth about it. So I tell my story in part one and what led me to these realizations, and then part two is more of that coaching framework.
Okay. And you do the same thing at the farm or is that just a place, that's just a space to chill out and get away from it all?
Well, you can chill out and get away from it all. There's some great spots to do that, but no, that's the heavy work that we'll do during some retreats and coaching work that I do at the farm. All encompasses those five bridges, because, again, I want people to have that work-life integration that they're proud of and that they're leaving the legacy. Because I work a lot with the entrepreneurs and high achievers, because that's who I resonate with, and I've seen too many of them in broken marriages and estranged relationships with their kids, or they've fallen into alcoholism or some other addiction, or they've completely let their health go and they sell their business at 49 and they're dead by 50.
Mm.
So that's not what we are meant for, just to build a big business and not have some of these other joys on the planet. Like that 49-year-old, 50-year-old that died because of a heart attack because they didn't take care of themselves is going to have no experience with their grandchildren.
Mhm.
right? So I want to cover the whole person and not just the business individual.
Right. And scripture talks about all the suffering, and how we use that to do things for God's kingdom, but it also talks about how God wants us to have joy. And that, I believe, can be taken for granted or forgotten when you get caught up in doing all the things, because you're like this. I don't know, if you're a type A personality or you are very driven, you try to do all the things and then you have trouble stopping to breathe, which sounds like that you kind of met that as well. Um,
Yeah.
Now, where if we were going to go to the you said it was Five Bridges Farm. Where is that, and how
Yep.
to find out about your retreats?
So there's two separate websites, but you can get to it through my main website, which is joshkosnick.com. We also have Five Bridges Farm, five spelled out, I should say, farm.com. But it's in Madison, Wisconsin, or it's a small town just outside, but literally it's 2 minutes to civilization. But when you are out there, you feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. So it's a
Mhm.
great spot because I can get to downtown Madison in 12 minutes. But when you're out there, you're just in this beautiful space, this little slice of heaven. It's on 80 acres, and you
Mhm.
can just detach from the troubles that you're facing in your world, and we can have some deep conversations around uh, what's your purpose and what do you want to accomplish, and how do we get this integration right. So one of the things that I did as a part of this book was created an assessment that covers the five bridges, and it's totally free. So anyone that wants to take it, you can go to my website. If you get the book, there's a QR code in the book that you can get right to it. And it's 84 questions, and that sounds like a lot, but it takes the average person 6 minutes to do. So it is a pretty short assessment, but it'll give you a score, a totality score, but then also a score for each of the bridges. And so if your spiritual bridge is lacking, now you know where the gap is, and you can start to close that gap, and it gives you some advice. And same for internal relationships, environment, and legacy. And so that's one of the things, like when we do our coaching work, is like one of the first things is take that assessment so I know where the gaps are, and
Mhm.
can start addressing those based on your priorities.
Okay. And I'm sure that the website talks more about it in depth, but how does it work? Is it individual? Is it a group thing? Is it a couples thing? Do you have kind of all of the above?
So the only thing that I haven't done yet is a couples retreat, which
Okay.
is something that's been on my heart as well. We just haven't had, this is still a infant business,
Mhm.
right? It's only 3.5 years into it. So that's something that will be on the docket going forward. But we have mastermind groups, we have individual coaching, stuff of that nature. And then obviously, um, if someone just wants to use the property as far as an event for themselves or a getaway for themselves, like we rent it out, because I got it to share. Like, not
Okay.
everyone has the means to buy a property, but they may
Right.
have the means to just get away and break away from the hustle and bustle of their life. So I've even donated, a weekend stay for some charitable events and stuff of that nature, um, where they can just be away from the stuff that's weighing them down. But yeah, for my coaching, there's masterminds, there's one-on-one, and then we're actually rolling out some new coursework next year that'll be online, with an immersion experience at the farm at the end of the coursework.
Okay. That sounds nice. So where do we get your book? Is it I'm assuming on the website, it's been on Amazon, all the places?
Yeah. I think even my website goes straight to Amazon, so that's totally fine. It's a I've gotten 115 reviews now already. I've read, or 117. I think 115 were 5 star. I think that's the numbers I'm remembering. And I've read
Okay.
every one of them because it's just meaningful. Like, we hit the bestseller, number one bestseller in 12 different categories, which for a first time author was just utterly humbling. Um,
Congratulations.
Thank you. The feedback's just been amazing because I'm not trying to be the expert. I'm just trying to share from the journey and just
Right.
help people.
Okay. Is there any other place that people can reach you, or just the website, Amazon? Do you have anything else?
I'm on all the socials, and my name, I haven't met another Josh Kosnick, so my name,
Okay.
got great SEO. So I'm at Josh Kosnick on all the socials. And if someone has a specific question, or if they, um, want to reach out, or just tell me what the biggest takeaway from our conversation today is, like, I'm happy to converse. Like, I still run it. I'm not too big of a deal. Like so in the financial world, you really couldn't be on social media. So it's interesting. So now that I'm out of that world, I've been on it a lot more. But my goal isn't to grow the biggest following and be an influencer. It's to be an impactor. So I'd rather be
Mhm.
a person of impact where I can continue to help people wherever, whatever stage they're at. And then if it happens to grow to be a big following, great. But I want to impact the people that come into my sphere.
Sounds wonderful. Josh, would you share any encouragement for those who are listening right now or even later that they feel maybe they're just kind of stuck and they want to make good changes? They want to make the right changes. They might be a little confused. They don't have that clarity. I love the clarity hour, by the way. You said that was one time a week. What would remind me?
Yeah,
Is it
you
one?
could do it daily, but I would say I would encourage people to do it at least once a week. Just take an hour.
Okay.
Mine was when I had the big firm, 10 a.m. on Friday mornings. Just broke away, did that, came back to the office, and I always felt rejuvenated.
Yes.
But to encourage those that are stuck or even going through it right now, like Christina mentioned earlier, like God's, there's sometimes God's he packages pain, or purpose and pain, I should say. That's what I wanted to say, is he sometimes packages purpose and pain, or disguises purpose and pain. And we got to walk through it, unfortunately.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I used to say, because people used to tell me, and sometimes still do, what you went through, like, would have broke most people. And I used to say, yeah, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And now, 4 years removed from it, I say, if you must go through it, go through it, because
Hmm.
on the other side is a true blessing, and you just don't know what it is until you walk through that fire.
Hmm.
And for me, it's happened. So for those, but those for that are feeling stuck, what's the next right step? Not the thousandth step, not the 10 steps down the road. What's the next right step? Just one step that you can take towards your vision, or to get unstuck. Or, it's interesting, as we say, help people set goals. They're like, oh, I want to get back in shape. Okay. How long have you not been working out? 10 years. Okay. So what's your plan to work out? Well, I'm gonna get a gym membership, and I'm gonna go to the gym. It's January 1st. I'm gonna set New Year's resolutions. I was like, how about we change the goal to, you have your workout clothes set out the night before, and your first step is to just put them on in the morning. And
Hmm.
that's the goal. And just to, because that's the next step, because before you go work out, you actually got to put on workout clothes or running shoes or whatever it may be. So how about we focus on that as the goal?
Hmm.
Because how often are you going to not go work out, or not go downstairs to the treadmill once you have your running shoes on?
Yeah.
Versus you thinking, oh, I got to drive 15 minutes to the gym, and you're going to get in your head, and that little voice on your shoulder is going to go, I'll get back in that warm, cozy bed. Like, just focus on that next right step wherever you're
Right.
feeling stuck, and not worry about the rest of the noise until the noise gets there.
Right. For some people, the next right step is getting out of the bed in the first place. Like just getting.
Yeah.
My son has a really difficult time, but he is teenager. So, like you said, you have a 14-year-old. I don't know if you see that, but so once we get past the fire, there is greater purpose, and we are growing in that fire if we are able to walk it out. But also, people are watching us. So, a lot of times we think that we're the only ones, we're so consumed with all of that is going on to us, so to speak. We don't notice that other people are watching how we walk through it. And I believe very much so that the Lord uses that to help us guide other people. In Titus, it talks about how the women are supposed to guide the younger women, the older women are, and the older men are supposed to help as well. And so, when we go through those things, it is not only a teaching moment for us, but it's a teaching moment for other people as well. So,
Yeah.
do you
As
have?
you're saying that, I started tearing up, because
Yes.
you don't know this because you haven't read the book. But I journaled in that 6 months. My coach made me journal. I was never against it. I just never took the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And my most powerful journal entry was 2 words: they're watching.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And and I was talking about my kids at that time
Mm-hmm.
because we had taught them, you know, just since they're toddlers, like what do we do when we fall down? We get back up. And what example would I be if to get knocked down and not get back up to them? I would be, well, a man of words and not of action, and not following the words that I taught them. But as you stated very eloquently there, what I came to find over the next 6 months and now 4 years, it wasn't just them watching.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was.
Yeah.
Everyone was. They wanted to know if I was going to get, because remember, from the outside looking in, everyone just saw the straight path up for Josh. And then I get knocked down very publicly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found that everyone, not just my family, my past coworkers, even people that didn't like me, were seeing if I'd stay down, take that big buyout and just disappear, or if I'd get back up and remake myself.
Mm-hmm. It's a human condition to be curious in watching a superhero fall and pay attention to what they're going to do with that fall, whether or not they're going to rise again or they're going to let things hold them down. So, and like you said, I knew you were talking about your children because that is, as parents, that's our first thought is our kids are watching us. And, what are they going to learn from me during this time? But others, it could be your parents, it could be your siblings, it could be, your friends, your workers,
Could be
here,
people you don't even know,
right,
because
for sure.
or but you didn't know they were watching. I've had people come
For
up to
sure.
me and that I haven't talked to in years
Hmm.
and tell me that they, have just absolutely admired how I've
Hmm.
handled the last 4 years and what I've grown and done
Hmm.
since that fall. Like, and so that's the other thing about social media that's kind of powerful because I've been very vulnerable about my story and telling it, and being public online with not only what happened, but also what I'm doing. And it's oftentimes not the people that like your posts. It's oftentimes not the people that even comment on your stuff, but they're watching, and then they run into you in person, or they shoot you a message via DM a year or 2 years later and go, "Hey, you've inspired me."
Right.
And it's like, I didn't even know you were watching.
Right, for sure. Yeah, and I noticed that when we lost our daughter, where I would post things online, and uh, a lot of times that held me accountable for seeking God's face, because I was a Christian before, but I really started having to lean on Him more because I was so distraught. And uh, I felt at first it felt like I don't know, I had this sense of I have to do it, which I ended up asking God permission at one point to say, can I stop doing this? Can I be released? Because I knew people were
Mm.
watching. I was like, can I stop? And I felt like He said, okay, because it wasn't this idea of just checking the box and putting something out there just to put it out there, but it was this idea of really relying on God to speak through me if He wanted anybody to hear. And, I told him years ago, I said, well, if you want one person to gain anything from what I've gone through, or if you want millions of people, it's up to you. But I am there for that.
Yeah.
And you see people on social media that'll come to you like you said, and they'll say, I've been watching, I haven't, there will be no likes, there will be no comments. Just a couple years later they might say something, or even people that maybe you used to know years ago that pop up and say, when you went through this, I paid attention. And you're like, wow, I didn't even know you remembered who I was. Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's
um
happened multiple times, and it's amazing every time. It's humbling, and
yes.
it's affirmation that you were, you know, doing the right thing based on what God called you to do. Because You weren't doing it for them because you didn't even know they were watching.
Right. You're standing in obedience because God is calling you to walk through something, whether it's uncomfortable or not. Um, do you have any other verses that you, or any verse that you specifically would like to share with the audience?
Yeah, Philippians 16:9 has meant a lot to me. You and I didn't talk about this today, but we talked about it before the show. And my father-in-law's passing, it was his life verse. For me to live as Christ and to die as gain. And it was not a verse that I was very well familiar with before his passing. In fact, I didn't even know it was his life verse. It was my wife and my sister-in-law were sitting in the funeral director's room or whatever at the place, and they brought it up, and I dug into that more. And was like, man. So I now have it tattooed on my ribs, and it's a reminder that to follow Christ, to because he is the greatest leader of all time. And I even taught. I'm on stages with high functioning CEOs, entrepreneurs. I have no idea what their beliefs are, and so I walk that line, but I say to the point where I was like, look, he's the greatest leader of all time, whether you believe what I believe or not. He showed us how to live a perfect life, and all we got to do is follow his lead on how to treat humans, how to live our life, and uh,
Mhm.
and so my goal is to continue to follow and lead more like him. And I know that when I die, I gain eternity. And so that verse has meant a lot and continue to mean a lot in how I lead my life.
Thank you for sharing that. And I do believe that we are supposed to be um, readers of the word, and we're supposed to take heart to the scripture that we read. God does speak to us through scripture. It is living, and we place it on our hearts, and that is given to us so that we can share it with others. So thank you so much, Josh, for being on the show. I've enjoyed this
Thanks for
conversation.
having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
For those of you out there, continue to be blessed and bless others, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Faith Breathed Hope. Please take a moment to subscribe and leave a review. Be blessed.